Galezzo? Here. Mr. Diorio? Not here. Brad Jackson?
Here.
Joe Levine? I'm sorry, Andy Levine.
Here.
Joe Levino?
Here.
Scott Neville?
Here.
David Temang?
Here.
Okay, being all here, let's hit right into the thing. First on the agenda is the budget hearing, fiscal year '25 budget overview, revenue in general. Mr. Smaglia, how you doing?
I'm doing great.
Let's go right into it.
Yeah. Where do you want to start?
Start with revenue.
What's that?
Start with revenue.
Page one?
I can jump into
or-
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we're gonna let Brian jump right into that.
Yeah,
Yeah, I know Lou gave a great overview last night for anyone that happened to see it.
yep,
That's all basically the preamble, the precursor to the budget book. And just at a very high level, FY '25 budget is a 4.2% increase. We conservatively budget the revenues as a town. We've done this for years. It's nothing new. It's town's formal policy as to how we structure the budget to try and prevent any massive spikes from year to year. So we want to try and keep it consistent. The tax levy is formula-driven. We add the 2.5%. We add new growth. I'll get into that in a minute in more detail.
Within the tax levy, we have a TIF with analog devices. Has that ended?
That has been, as far as my understanding is, it's either very close to completion or just at completion for this tax year.
Okay, great.
There's discussion going on, but that's my understanding, is it's very close, if not already expended.
Okay, thank you.
Local receipts is, we'll get into the more detail on that too. The biggest piece of that is historically the motor vehicle excise tax. Local aid, we typically try to budget this as the actuals from the year before. There has been some very modest growth from year to year, especially since COVID. It's been hard to predict the growth. And when we work on the budget, we start early in the fiscal year compared to when we get figures from the state. Typically, I'd say probably the last 4 years, I guess, especially since COVID, we don't get a firm approved budget from the state until well after town meeting.
Yeah.
And during COVID times, we didn't get it till July or August at that point.
Wow.
So we get a head start on our budget, and then we go to try and basically hit print on it, and then the governor presents her budget. She presented hers on Thursday. Yeah. So we got the cherry sheet stuff Thursday as we're going to print. Again, that kind of ties into the fact that when we conservatively budget our revenues, we want to look at the historicals from year to year and make sure that we don't expect any downturns in local aid. There've been minor increases year to year. We went from the governor's budget, we compared it to what we received from last year. It was about $180,000. In increases, we don't want to just play with that or just add that in there, because then we'll add A, corresponding expenses on the other side, and B, we know it's not a finished product. It's got to go through the Senate, the Ways and Means, and it takes a while before it's ultimately finished. So we use a jumping off point of the actuals from the year before. So that's where the local aid figure is going to look very familiar if you see the FY '24 actuals when it was finally approved. Free cash, we are using about 1.6 million, proposing 1.6 million, and it's all capital projects. There's 4 capital projects that Lou had touched on last night. 2 of them are DPW, 2 of them are fire. For fire, one of them is for $600,000 for feasibility for a substation. There's more to come on that. And then the ambulance is $475,000. That's more or less to get us in line. It's a long procurement process
I realize that.
on ambulances, and it's,
Will that, last time we went out for bid on ambulance, we appropriated, it was low.
yes.
Will this get us an ambulance or not?
This is much higher than what we had before. My hope is by the time we go to that point is
And the
it's
chief
gonna be
seems to think
suspicion,
so.
so, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, he's the one who's been,
Obviously, it's
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. You can feel free to ask him too when he comes in here.
Oh,
He's
I
the
will.
one who's been working on the bids, and I know that it's hard to put your thumb on
Yeah.
what the cost of that's gonna be by the time it comes down the line and we're in queue.
Yeah.
The other 2 are DPW vehicles, DPW equipment. Replacing H-22 was a $205,000 project. And the other is a Vector truck for DPW that they want to share between water and their Public Works division.
Okay,
That's a pricey piece of equipment, and they want to at least use the free cash for the town share of it, for the DPW share. So that's how we get the 1.6 million. The indirect charges is essentially transfers from water, from cemetery, from other special revenue funds that are used to basically offset charges that are incurred in the general fund. For water, for example, it's for debt service for water, for shared personnel that are in DPW that do water, that work for the water but not directly employed under the water division. And then every year, we add 20,000 from sale of cemetery lots and from the interest from the cemetery trust to help maintain the cemeteries there. That's been ongoing. That's not going to change anytime soon. The next couple of pages are just different ways to slice how the budget looks historically and how it's basically cut from year to year, and how it's divvied up in the current year as well. That's 2, 3, and 4 are all different ways to slice the data. And we've kept the same historical framework long since before I had started here. Page 5 is going to show you more detail on the tax levy. Again, the base is the starting point from the prior year. We're going to take the 2.5% growth on it. I'm sorry, the 2.5% increase, and then we add our new growth, and then we have excluded debt from the high school project that we have on the books till, I believe, 2037, that we add on top of that after we get to the figure.
New
So
growth is,
Yeah, that's the next thing I was going to mention,
Okay.
is we have been using a smaller figure for years now for our estimated new growth. And we've been trying to use a 10-year look back on trying to take the average. The last 3 years, it's been well over 2.5 million. Last couple of years, it's been 3 million, which is anomalies, but the fact that it's happened year over year has obviously raised the average, and we wanted to increase that a bit to try and reflect the fact that the last 10-year average is over 2 million now at this point. So we still feel it's a little conservative, but we want to make sure it's something that's attainable as well. So we've had discussions with administration and with the assessor as well to try and determine what we have coming in the pipeline for new growth.
okay, because from the pipeline, it looks like it's full. You know, just riding around town. You know, it's, there's a lot out there.
Page 6, page 7, these are all informational. They're also, if you had seen the tax rate hearing back in November around Thanksgiving, these are commonly provided at that point as well. It wants to show you how Wilmington compares to other local communities, and wants to just show how the classification is split between residential, commercial, industrial, and personal property, and then how the tax levy is born when we do the shift that's voted on by the board every year, and how we shifted from residential over to the commercial, industrial, and personal property. Page 8 is a more detailed look on local receipts, and I just wanted to talk to a couple different items in here. Again, this is another one that's historically, the actuals come in higher than we have to conservatively budget what we have coming in, because if not, we could have other issues that could be structural if we're overestimating revenue and underestimating expenses.
Yeah.
So that's been a longstanding policy of the town. We increased the motor vehicle excise estimate, but we still believe it's well in line with what we've seen for A, historical figures, and B, the commitments that come through as the treasurers get the file from RMV when they're going to book the commitments. And that's a pretty accurate pipeline so we can gauge what's coming in for the actuals, what's been billed. Local meals tax, we increased that a little bit just based on the fact the last 2 years have been stronger than we had projected. Again, COVID threw everything in flux with restaurant, how the restaurant industry operates as a whole, how people utilize a restaurant and to-go factor operations. So we feel that number is still reasonably conservative. The one that does jump out a little bit is there is some volatility in charges for service ambulance. I know that was a hot button topic last year, where the initial budget presented by the manager had included a multitude of ambulance services. We ultimately backed those out prior to town meeting. And the other oddity too is when you look at FY '22, that was when we had been still netting the receipts for the revenue.
Yep.
We'd pay about $550,000 a year or so at that point for ambulance service charges. So the 938 you see in FY '22 was netted. The 1.5 you see in FY '23 was the gross revenue from ambulance services the town brought in.
And what about the 871?
That was the budget, initially put in last year, and then.
And that's gross? Is that a gross number you put in?
That would have been net last year, just for the budget. That was one we were still trying to put our finger on. And then we end up, the zero you see next to it is just to end, what we ultimately used to balance when we stripped out all of the other projected costs of in-housing ambulance service or we had, I think it was almost a choose your own adventure. We had 3 different models. We were trying to figure out how the town could move forward on it. It was ultimately decided we're going to continue to contract and we're going to put our heads together and try and figure out the best way. So that explains some of the volatility, but just based on the historicals, again, pre-COVID times, we were averaging about 1.3, 1.2 million in gross. COVID, it had dropped because of ambulance services were only used in case of very extreme cases. And then it picked up again. FY '22, the gross was a little over 1.5 million. FY '23, the gross was the 1.52 that you see there, so.
And the 1.2, is that gross and net that you're estimating?
That would be gross, but that's still, exactly.
Brian, can you just back up 1 minute?
Yeah.
Payments in lieu of taxes,
Yes.
what is the big jump there?
It's the contractual figure we get from Reading Municipal Light, we get paid twice a year, is pretty close to set in stone, and that's still probably a little on the conservative end.
Who else do we get payment in lieu of taxes from?
We get, I believe it's the Housing Authority.
Okay,
The Reading Light is
Is the biggest, yeah.
99% of it, and I believe there was an agreement from the 80s with the Housing Authority
okay,
for a small amount based on certain figures, and that has been trailing off, I believe.
okay. Thank you.
The other two that jump out to me, at least, I just wanted to call attention to is the license and permits from building. That spiked pretty high during COVID times, and then post-COVID, the revenues have, FY '23 was 1.4 million in building permits, basically. We don't see that continuing, but we want to try and be more cognizant of the fact that the last few years has been well beyond the previous estimates we had of 4.25. So we moved that up a little bit. And then investment income, when it was nearly 700,000 in '22, we thought that was incredibly high from everything we've seen. And then it was an incredible high water mark of where it was in FY '23. So we did want to raise the figures that we have from our historical budgets, but we still want to be cognizant of the fact that the market continues to evolve.
Yeah.
And we don't want to inflate a figure just based on past performance, assuming that that's going to continue in the future. So those are the key items on the local receipts. Again, on the local aid, we want to use at least a jumping off point for the estimate based on the historicals from FY '24. The figures from the governor's proposal came in as we we're going to print this, and we didn't want to adjust it and artificially find an expenditure to balance the budget on that point. But that came in at 181,000, and again, the governor's proposal is 181,000 higher than what we have in this, and we don't want to touch that leeway yet, and we know it's going to continue to change as it goes through the House, the Ways and Means in the Senate, so. And then the last item is just the available funds, the transfers. The one item to note where you see the real increase on the water side will be the debt principal. That's when we go to bond the projects that are going on, the town hall, the school admin, and the senior center. We're also actually converting the short-term debt that we've been riding out for 6 years or so on the water tank project. That was a short-term note of $2.5 million from 2018, I believe, and making that fixed debt. So that's where the increase to the debt service comes and the decrease to the miscellaneous debt comes. We're falling off on some of the charges that relate to that, but it's moving into the fixed
Okay.
long-term debt side of the equation. Page 11 is just a high-level summary of how the expenditures shake out. Again, you'll see the same figure throughout the budget. The 138,133,707, that's the total. The total budget for FY '25, which again is a 4.2% increase. Just a graphical representation of how the expenditures break down. And then 13 and 14 are historicals on the staffing levels. And I believe, as Lou hit on last night, he asked every department to do the best they can about trying to level fund the budget. There were still some requests for FTEs. DPW was here back in November, explaining the challenges they have with taking on additional recreational space to maintain. So there is one new FTE request in DPW, which I believe was in Parks.
Yep.
There was one new request in IT that I believe has been discussed at length as it relates to cybersecurity and other issues. And then there was a request between veterans and elderly, where there's one employee who's currently shared between the two of them to move full-time into veterans, and then for elderly to take on a full-time program coordinator to help with the new senior center and the ongoing projects there.
Just a quick question on
Yep.
11. Shawshing Tech, up 14.6
That is, again, a rough estimate. We use 15% off the actual, so it shows as 14 and change, because if you may remember last year, by the time we got the figures after the budget had really been presented by the manager, and it was a little bit higher, slightly, than what we had. No, we were trying to just be proactive and not get caught again, where a couple years ago, we projected we had a 10% increase, which we thought was,
Yeah.
we thought was protecting ourselves, and it still came in higher than that two years ago.
Have you
so.
heard from the tech as to when they're going to actually present their budget?
I believe it's on your calendar.
It's on the calendar, but last year, they missed that date.
Oh, no.
We had to have a special meeting just for Shawshing Tech.
Yeah, no, as far as I know, they're on board and they know that the date is fixed.
Okay.
The superintendent's coming in front of the Board of Selectmen, the Select Board, first meeting in February to talk about the stabilization fund they want to set up.
Okay.
And we can ask them then to make sure that they understand that they have to set to these, state of these times.
I also want to ask them about MSBA. I know they got rejected once, but have they gone back to,
They have.
they have, okay.
Are they looking to build an entirely new school?
That
or-
I'm not sure of.
Or just,
Yeah, that I'm not sure of.
Additions.
I didn't talk to them in depth about that, but the stabilization fund, you might have seen an email going around that they're looking to
Yeah.
set that up, funding it through their budget. And so Chairman DePalma asked them to come into the first meeting in February.
yeah, a lot of questions on how that
Yeah.
will
Yeah.
be funded.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also how it's going to affect their equivalent to free cash, too.
Right.
Yeah.
Right,
And how the money comes out of capital stabilization.
right.
Mm.
That's,
How that
some of the
all fits.
surrounding town managers were questioning that.
Have they had the town managers meeting yet?
I think they did right before I started.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm not just saying that. I think it was either like right after I started or right before I started. But I know some of the other town managers are having them in front of their boards.
Yeah, okay.
Is that, maybe through you, Mr. Chair, Brad, you might know, I'm sure you do know, is that unusual for a technical school or a regional school to have a capital stabilization fund?
Have a breakfast.
I don't know if it's unusual. I mean, it's a way to kind of bypass the 25% maximum excess and deficiency.
Yeah,
Like see,
Yeah.
regional school districts have a maximum E&D they can carry, which is 25% of their previous year's expenses. And the rest they have to give back
Right,
to the towns.
member communities. So this would put, as I understand it, I've never done this before, I've never asked for it, it's a pretty gutsy move. I never had the courage to do it. This would put the authority in the hands of the tech school committee to decide whether they gave the money back, if they had excess, gave the money back to the member districts, or if they kept it and put it in stabilization. They do have other stabilization funds. They have OPEB, they have an OPEB trust
right,
like we do, but that's untouchable.
right, right. That, I think that's the concern, is that, is it something new? We don't understand it.
Way
We-
around things.
Like, right,
Yeah, it could be
what
a
is
way
really
around.
going on with this? So, thank you for
I
that.
was just told that I have a breakfast
For luncheon.
or a
yeah.
luncheon coming up in February with some of the surrounding town managers regarding this issue.
Good.
I did not know I had a beverage.
Good evening. Just a few questions.
Name and address, please.
Kevin McDonald. I just wanted to ask you if the board here has seen a breakdown of the expenditures of the Shawshene Tech where they've arrived at the budget amount for, say, last year.
They haven't presented their budget to us yet, okay?
Yeah, that's
there-
not what I'm asking. I'm asking if this board, which is looking to give a recommendation
Please.
on the budget, has seen a complete breakdown of expenditures and payouts that the Shawshene Tech has made.
That would be in their budget, okay? When we get the budget, we'll take a look at it. They're scheduled for March 4th. Last year, they were late, so we're gonna contact them, the superintendent, to make sure that they are on time for their budget.
Okay, that's not what I was asking. I appreciate that information.
It
But
co-
what
with-
I'm asking is, as far as warrants go, and as far as
We don't get
monies that get expended for the tech,
what does.
have you seen,
the
have you,
school- the
it's
school-
just a yes or no question. If you haven't, that's
The school
okay.
committee does the warrants, okay? We don't see those.
But you're a checks and balances board that's supposed to be reviewing these things, right?
We don't do the warrants, we do the total budget. And the total budget will be presented to us on March 4th.
Okay, one of my concern,
Seventh.
one of my concerns is that the Shawshene Tech is looking for a stabilization fund as an investment fund. And so my concern is, how do you place trust in that board to return an investment that's not a losing proposition? Every single year, the town is supplementing pensions, and I haven't really ever seen a presentation where there's a thorough analysis given to see what the money managers are returning on these investments. And I've had some concerns about the Shawshene Tech because of what I've heard as feedback from some of the people who have kids going there, where the Barica Police has been responding to a lot of incidents there, drugs and all other kinds of problems. And so it's just a legitimate question that I think the town should be able to have answered. Who
When
was doing the
the-
checks and
When
balances?
the budget is presented to us, I'm sure there'll be a lot of questions. One, definitely from myself, will be the stabilization fund, okay?
Okay, will you, on behalf of this board as the chairman, request a list of their warrants
No.
to go down and see what the expenditures are?
No,
I mean,
no, because.
why
within-
not? Why
no,
not? How do you know what the,
it-
you know, if they're buying
Okay, let me.
sparkling bikinis for their girls or boys or whatever,
I seriously
you know,
doubt that, but.
different expenditures that are getting spent, why can't we have checks and balances?
We don't drill down that far because that is management, okay? It's not in this purview, okay? We look at their total budget, okay? Their budget, they take their warrants, they'll be part of the budget. They'll be the expenses, okay?
I
And that's-
respect what
that's
you're
gonna be
saying, okay, but you gotta try to understand where I'm coming from. Free cash, okay, is a result of over budgeting. There's, what, $40 million in free cash now? And it's a result of massive over budgeting. And that in turn gets paid for the
Not-
people.
not
So you're
necessa-
taxing people
Don't argue
for
with that.
something that's not a true number. So what's happening with the Shawshene Tech? You don't know. You're just trusting them, and
We'll
we're
look at,
we're
we'll
not.
look at their budget, and I thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
That's great.
Brian?
Thank you. So I believe where we left off was we had just gone over the staffing on page 14, and then going to start to get into some of the departmental budgets here. The first one on page 15 is just the budget for the select board. That is truly level funded, literally the same as the prior year. If moving forward, the next couple of pages are for the elections. You'll get to go through that when the town clerk is in here. There are obviously more elections in FY '25,
Yeah.
so it spikes it up. Page 20 is the budget for the Finance Committee. The only increase here is just based on a change of rate for the recording secretary. Everything else has been level funded. Under the Finance Committee, Page 21 is for the town manager's office. The expenses, again, purely level funded. There are some increases for the other full-time, just based on steps, based on their, how long they've been here, and just based on their contracts.
And the manager.
And then the
salary.
town manager is up from the prior year up to the figure of 220,000 to
That was
use for the budget.
Done by the select board, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Moving on, IT will be in front of you guys later on during the budget season. Page 23 for the town accountant's office, my office. The salaries increased slightly, again, just based on step increases for the active personnel there. Contractual services are decreased by about 11,000 and change. That's because it's going to be an off year for the OPEB valuation. And otherwise, the expenses are level funded as well.
Are we going through a rating?
We will, later on in the spring.
Okay.
Yep, I had a call with Unibank on that to just kind of lay out the calendar and make sure they get everything they need as soon as they can, so.
Okay.
They want everything updated basically through end of December that I'm working with to get that done, starting later this week, so.
Okay, great.
We're going to get through this first.
Thank you.
But yeah, no, that's still coming in the spring, so.
Okay, and that's for the, what, Town Hall, School Administration Building and the Senior Center?
And then the water tank
And
as
the water-
well. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
What's going on with the, and maybe it's better for the Water and Sewer Department, but was it Woburn Street where it came in much higher than expected, that project?
Yeah, I can't quite speak to the level that Jamie would. I believe, my recollection is the figures came in when it went out to bid substantially higher than what they had anticipated.
Yeah, I did reach out to Jamie, and he did send me some answers to the questions that you brought up. And as the low bid for the senior center project came in higher than expected, the select board voted on 9/25 to reallocate the 1.8 million from the project over to senior center project. This makes the new allocation for the Woburn Street Water Main Project 3.7 million, and 302,000 has been committed for design, leaving approximately 3.4 million for construction. And he said he has no idea how the funding on the senior center, some of it was gonna come back if they were able to save money there. And the Woburn Street Water Main Project will be phased in links to accommodate available funding now that some money has been reallocated. The senior center phase 1 of the project is planning to go out to bid this winter, with construction in late spring, summer 2024. The phase 1 project will likely run from Quail Run to Concord Street, but largely depend on where the bids come in. This area was prioritized since the road in this section was in the worst shape. The additional 2029 and 2028 capital items are placeholders to allow back-end phasing to the Woburn Street project.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
All right, moving on to page 24 is the treasurer and collector's office. Again, there's some nominal increases on the, excuse me, on the salary side, just based on steps for existing personnel. There is some changes and increases on the expenditure side that's largely driven by the cost of printing and mailing of the tax bills. That's contracted out, and that is an increase on that front, and that is consistent with the inflationary environment we've seen pretty much everywhere else,
Yeah.
is this, the cost of goods has climbed. Moving ahead again, on 28, the town clerk will be in front of you. She'll go over the registrar, she'll go over the elections, and she'll go over her local budget. Board of Assessors, the salary side is nearly level, as best as it could be. It actually drops just a little bit, just based on personnel. And the contractual services had gone up as they're preparing for a revaluation year. So the cost of data inspection, valuation, et cetera, is all part of it, as they have to ramp up for appeasing the DOR's cyclical analysis. Page 31, Town Council. You may remember, this had been up around 300,000 a couple, bless you. A few years back, the budget had been up around as high as even 300,000, and we had worked to scale that down. So by the FY '24 budget, we scaled it down to 220, which might have been a little too much of a haircut. As you can see, the expenses from FY '23 came in about 240,000 and change. So we bumped that up to 250,000.
Mr. Doherty, can I ask you a question on that?
Yes, sir.
With regard to legal services, I've been hearing about various lawsuits in town where the counsel representing the town as a defendant is not KP Law. And I'd like you to weigh in on who pays for those attorneys for these lawsuits when that attorney isn't from KP Law, which the town is contracted with? Is it the insurance companies? Is it some other type of fund that they're using as far as water department funds? The other thing, I have another question after that, but do you know the answer to that, or to Mr. Semaglia or anybody?
I do. As you know, there's been many public records requests for litigation that's going on, so I can't comment on that, but I will say that some of the insurance company attorneys for Maya or different organizations are handling those, and that's not, again, there's litigation going on, and there's been a lot of public records requests
So-
lately, so.
So I appreciate that, Mr. Semaglia. So my question relative to that is, if the attorneys that are representing the insurance companies are not KP Law that we're contracted with, is there a reflection in the town's insurance premiums where these other attorneys are getting heavily involved with these lawsuits?
Again, there's litigation
you
going
can't
on
do-
in public records.
I'm not asking for litigation
No, no,
information.
I'm-
This is just a financial matter.
Any active litigation, we do not talk about, okay?
Public
Yeah,
records
I
requests.
honestly do not want to talk about anything that has to do with litigation. I'm strictly here just on a financial basis and wondering, in this budget, this year, coming up, because of the millions of dollars in increase, are the attorneys and the lawsuits showing any type of reflection as an increase in insurance premiums because of the various lawsuits, and some of which seems to me they could be settled and save the town a lot of money?
First off, I'm not going to comment on any,
I don't want to comment.
Litigate.
It's just strictly financial. Are our premiums going up? Yes or no?
We don't know.
that would be something you'd have to discuss with the insurance companies.
Okay, again, it's my understanding that the Finance Committee is an oversight committee, sort of like having checks and balances. Why would I have to reach out to the insurance companies when we have the town accountant here, the town manager here, and the chairman and the entire board of the Finance Committee? Why would I do that? Why would you expect anybody in town to do that when I would think that that's the job of you people here tonight?
Again, with litigation and numerous public records requests that are in regarding this very subject, I just don't think it's proper to comment right
I think
now.
we're going to have to pass on that right now.
Okay, well, maybe at the next meeting, you could get us the financial numbers to see and let the people of town know if this is costing them more money in their premiums. The other thing I just wanted to ask is, with regard to, say, police cruisers, the town's self-insured for police cruisers, and I know that 2 cruisers were totaled, but I just heard recently that a third cruiser got in another accident. So has that cruiser been deemed totaled, and are we able to collect any money, or is this
That-
totally on the town?
You're getting, I think you're getting a little lost, okay?
Oh, I know I'm at the town hall. I know this is
No, no,
121
no,
Glen
no.
Road,
You're-
and
you
I know
get
this is a
between-
finance committee
We're the
relative to the budget,
We're the
which
finan-
has to do with financial
We're the
matters.
finance committee, okay?
So I'm not
And we loo-
lost.
We look at the budget. You're lost between management and the finance committee, okay? That is management, okay? We do the budget. It is directly reflecting what management has given to us. Okay? Thank you. You can sit
Can
down.
you just- is it
Thank
possible
you,
for Mr.
Thank
S-
you, you can sit down now.
Okay, let me just give you my viewpoint.
Thank
I
you.
We
think the
don't want
real
your
people that are
viewpoint.
lost,
Sit down and shut up.
I think you people
I'm
are
not
lost.
elected. I don't care if I get
I don't
kicked
care
off
if you're
this
unelected
board.
or anything.
Excuse me.
You're not
You're both-
answering
you're-
questions.
you're
You're not
lost.
asking
Hold
questions
on,
that are
hold
relevant
on.
to this board.
Mr. McDonald, you can sit
It's-
down right
A
now.
finance matter isn't related to the finance
Mr.
committee?
McDonald,
Not
sit
asking
Who's
down.
lost?
questions that are
Who
relevant.
is the who are the people that are lost here? That's my question.
Sorry, I apologize.
Thank you, sir. Brian?
Excuse
Thank
me.
you.
I didn't apologize to you, sir. I apologize to John and
Thank
and
you.
the rest of the board.
All right. So we can skip ahead up actually to page 59 now. Again, the rest is the actual departments, public safety, DPW, health, recreation, et cetera. So once we skip up to 59, this is a little bit of some more detail on the debt and interest coming up. The figures, again, are based on the actual set in stone debt service for the existing projects on recreation, for public safety, the school building, and sewer. The water has been existing for various projects, but also has a projected increase for the water tank. And then obviously the senior center and the town hall school admin lines are new. Those are based on figures provided, again, by Unibank. Those were actually projected at 4.5% just for borrowing. I know that that does come up at time to time. What they project, and as of Friday when I talked to them, is they think it might come in lower. It still obviously won't be known until it goes out to the market. But they've been seeing lower figures coming in on some sizable projects when they go out to bid.
On recreation, is that Yentl still?
That is, yes.
When does that fall off?
2031.
2031?
2031, I believe. That's on page 66, and that is through 2031.
Brian, on the anticipation notes, you've got 130,000 in there. Is that both the town hall school administration building and the senior center?
That is anticipation notes, authentication fees, miscellaneous. That's kind of with any short-term debt. That had been increased the last few years just based on rolling the water debt from year to year. So we owe some interest. We owe a little bit of principal on that, as well as any potential borrowing or costs along those lines. So we decreased it based on the fact that it'll be going out to bid go out in '24, so it should decrease over '25.
Okay, thank you.
That was the logic behind that. Again, page 60 through 66 is just a breakdown of the existing debt on the books as constructed and agreed in the debt covenants. And
Do-
obviously, the most sizable one is the high school project,
I'm
yes.
sorry to interrupt you. Do you happen to know off the top of your head what the rate is on the high school debt? Was it 4 something?
I don't know. My guess would be it'd be lower. We had refinanced that or restructured that a few years ago and saw
Yeah,
some pretty
that's right.
significant savings on it.
Okay.
I don't have the figures
That's fine,
offhand, but I
that's
know
fine.
it was notable savings year
Yeah.
over year.
I remember
through-
that
through
now that you mention
2037,
it.
yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Can I, back on page 59, can you just
Okay.
kind of go through and remind me what's exempt debt and which is not?
The exempt,
school was
the
obviously-
excluded debt is the high school, everything else is not excluded. So that's,
So we
that-
only
that
have
figure
debt
ties out.
exclusion for the school project.
yes, and that figure ties out on the tax levy pages earlier on
Okay.
to show where the excluded debt's added on top of the calculation for you.
Check, do you?
No, go ahead. All right, moving on to 67, unclassified. The majority of these remain level funded as they had been. The ambulance one is the one that jumps out, I would think, to most, is again, this is the cost to contract. And this is a speculative figure provided by the fire chief as to what the market looks like to contract ambulance services in the near future.
Just
Is,
this, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Has the chief given you any indication of when that number might be firmed up?
I don't have any indication. I think it's a process as far as when it goes out to bid and then what comes back. But I guess from what he's heard through whoever he knows, it's been bidding lately is the market's not pretty.
Mhm.
Well, when's that contract up? June, July?
Yeah, soon, this year.
So when will we go? in?
Soon. He said the RFP will be going up pretty soon. Yeah.
who's it now? Action? Are they the only,
And he had mentioned three. He
Okay.
did mention three. And I can't think of them off the top of my head, I'm sorry. Action.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a tough market, I think, too.
Since we have the 1.2 to offset.
Yeah,
Correct.
exactly.
yeah, Brett?
Did I understand correctly that, it, publicly, we talked last year about the possibility of the fire department, taking over that services themselves,
hiring
and there
people.
was some
There was,
conversations
yes.
going on about that. Have those conversations stopped, and this is the direction that management has decided to go in?
yeah, those are beyond my, That's
I had
beyond my office, but yes.
spoken with Chief Kavanaugh. We did go over through the whole process, and it was becoming a little costly right now. You'd have to hire another 5 or 6 firefighters and equipment and everything, so he agreed to put it off till next year. Because it was gonna be a pretty substantial cost,
Yeah,
even though at
there's-
the end
there's-
it might save us.
There's a lot more to it
Right,
than just hiring eight new firefighters.
correct.
That's for sure.
Full-time EMTs.
Because we'd be looking at
certifications
overtime,
and-
we'd be looking at a lot of other things. And the other thing
paramedic
too is,
pay.
it still has not been approved by the union, okay? So that needs to be negotiated.
My question that I wasn't going to ask, but that's kind of the question behind the question, so, all right.
So, you know, it's gotta get approved by them, and then you have to take a look at the current firefighters. Do any of them wanna be,
Paramedics.
paramedics or not? You know, and if not, then we have to hire out, you know, it's a long process. It really is.
Yeah,
Right,
to staff
I
that
was just
24/7,
asking for an update
365.
because the process was going on a year ago, and I want to know if there's been any
Yeah.
progress or if the process stopped.
No, there's been a lot of talk on it.
Yeah,
It really
the
has.
process definitely hasn't stopped, and he agreed to help me, help the town out this year, and
So would there be so do we know what the anticipated length of this contract that we're going out to bid is going to be?
I believe 3 years. I believe 3 years.
So we're pushing it off for a long time then. It's not a year or two.
You're already lost this year.
Yeah, no,
You know what I mean? By the
Yeah.
time you do go into talks and get it up and running, you're probably at that 3-year stage.
Brian, could I just ask you,
Yeah,
the salary adjustments for 850,000,
yes.
what is that, I know you
Yep, so-
probably don't want to break it down per department, but
No,
is that
and I
all
could-
for,
It's,
you're in-
there are 2 unions that are under agreement through 25.
Okay.
AFSCME 1 and Dispatch.
okay,
All other unions are off of prior year contracts
Okay.
for the salaries projected in the budget.
okay.
Because we can't build it into the budget with
Mhm.
projected increases, knowing that there's negotiations going
Right,
on.
absolutely, okay,
Yep.
thank you.
Brian,
Yes.
go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Moving on to 68.
Would it be possible, Mr. Doherty, to ask a question on this last?
Why don't you wait until, to the end, and we can do public comments?
Okay, I just thought it might be easier to just do it while we're
We'll do
on
it in
this.
public comments, it'll be a lot easier, okay? Thank you.
68 is a breakdown of insurance as well as employee health and life insurance. I believe the increase on the employee health and life insurance is obviously one of the bigger ones. That's been a challenge, and that's a tough one to try and project this far out as well. From the year, the manager's office had been in contact with the health insurance consultant that they do work with on trying to kind of put their thumb down as to where they project the increase is going. So I believe it's a 10% increase baked into the budget for FY '25 on health and life. And then you can see the other lines as well for public officials, workers' comp, property, general liability, bonds, and accident for fire and police.
Workman's comp took a good-sized increase. Is that because of our rate?
I defer to Susan on this. Yeah, yeah, I'm not the best person to answer these, so I'd be
Okay,
happy to.
okay.
So, I didn't want you to get in the weeds with that.
No, I could give a high level, and that's where my
You want me
knowledge and
to
that's
take a
all.
minute and do this?
Yeah, do you
while
want,
you're-
no, go right
Okay,
ahead.
All right. Sorry about that. I just didn't want to see him go down that road if he didn't have to. So, the sheet in the budget book obviously will reflect the annual numbers that may seem inconsistent year to year, and the reason for this is Maya gives us these estimated increases at a certain time of year, and they're never quite ready to give us, so we're always working that down. We've had a couple of years of double-digit increases with Maya, largely because of that Wildwood oil claim that we're carrying. We are trending everywhere else fairly well with Maya, and so they're going to be advising me soon of sort of I get closer and closer to the real number as I, get past this meeting, unfortunately. So when I was looking at this meeting, they were saying 15%. Now they're maybe a little closer to 10%, and I'm really working them down to say, let's get in the single digits again, because this has been crazy that we've had 2 years of increases. The good news, and I know you'll ask me about that claim is going in the right direction. We're doing a lot of work to move that subrogation process around, and it's happening. So they're kind of happy with the progress that we've made.
Have we included all the other costs associated with it?
All of the costs for that have been sent long ago
So,
to
so
legal team.
going to the middle school has been included, and
Yeah, we went through everything with everyone, and all the lawyers have been involved, and yes, well, I actually had to do a very, a very long list of expenses to send to
did
them.
they put an experience rating on the policy?
Did they put an experience rating on the policy? I don't know the answer to that. I don't know precisely what you're talking about, but let me go through the rest of my numbers and see if are you thinking an experience modification, that kind of thing? Yes, I have some good stuff for that. So on the public officials liability, we're looking at a loss ratio of like 117%, but there are open claims still and losses are developing from prior years. So an ideal loss premium ratio is 40%, so 117 is not great in that regard. Workers' comp loss ratio is 44%, and the experience modification has gone up to 1.12. So that's where we are with those. The property and casualty, the Wildwood oil spill, as we said, is the subrogation. That put us up to a 254% loss ratio in FY22, and over the past 3 years, it's been 127. So we're trending in the right direction, going down with that, but we're still, they didn't really give me an experience modification to answer you, but they did give me the 127 as the overall loss ratio for the last 3 years.
Where are we standing in subrogation right now?
They've kind of advised that I don't get into that in this meeting right now because they're, it's a legal process, so I did ask too, because I knew you'd ask me the question, so I'm not just saying that flippant because I didn't know. The other piece of this I wanted to just highlight was we are, we've really made a lot of progress in trying to hang on to our cyber liability insurance. I'm only mentioning it, you're not seeing it on this list. It is part of the property and casualty. Kudos to the IT department. They have done the multi-factor authentication program, which has really helped us retain that insurance. We have $1 million of coverage, and that coverage would be very difficult to get on an open market because they're really asking for a lot of other things other than just the MFA, as they say. So I just wanted to point that out and give kudos to them.
100% of the employees and boards and committees go through that?
Certainly, we try to. I think you'd have to ask IT for the direct numbers because I don't know.
We did not.
You didn't get 100%?
We didn't get 100%.
Okay. In addition, just like to tell you that Brian Scouten, the chair of the safety committee, applied for a loss control grant, did get a loss control grant this year from Maya for a camera for the sewer and drain lines, and that was a nice benefit of $7,640. So in addition to that, we have accident and sickness, fire and police. That is the $175,000 that represents the payment with BFIS. And that basically, in addition to that, we pay a $9,200 claims administration renewal fee with them and a $35,000 deductible. So basically, that coverage is the first $91,000 roughly comes out of us, and then anything over that is covered with that, the accident and fire insurance through the FIS. And on the employer health insurance, that the cost you see wrapped up in there in this category include health insurance, the 75% that the town covers. It includes stop-loss insurance, which is additional coverage for any health insurance claims over $175,000. Basic life for current employees through Boston Mutual. In addition, this line item also includes the town's contribution to the retiree health care for those who are not Medicare eligible. I can give you a little bit more detail on that. Could be people that are under 65, not disabled, or over 65 and not eligible based on the fact that they did not pay for the Medicare system or have no eligibility through a spouse. So that covers all of those, and then it also covers short-term disability, long-term disability, vision, dental. Oh, excuse me, it doesn't cover. Short-term disability, long-term disability, vision, dental, and voluntary life are paid directly by the employee and are not included in that figure. So, with regard to our health insurance, I just want to skip over to that for a minute. Our health insurance is increasing 10% this year. It's really at a 10.75 right now. But I will tell you, over the past 6 months, this thing has fluctuated to be 16% to like come down to 10%. So it has been a ride just to get to 10. While we've enjoyed very stable rates for the past 5 to 8 years, we unfortunately seeing a significant increase in FY25. In the meeting with our representative from NFP, he pointed out 3 major contributions to this increase, the first of which is an 18% overall increase in claims. The second is an increase in large claims. These are claims that exceed $175,000. We're seeing a 220% increase in those claims in our most recent 12 months. The third and most concerning part of this increase is the vastly underestimated healthcare inflation. I think that's a common problem a lot of people are having, and this news is especially troubling for us, obviously. In response to this increase in underestimation, NFP has been directed by us to investigate a few items that can reduce the cost of the healthcare insurance. We would like them to look at plan design. We're asking them if there is anything that could potentially lower our premiums. We've instructed them also to reach out to Blue Cross to see where there are potential areas for savings in our current offering. We're heavily considering the prospect of looking into other plans and administrators to ensure that we are getting a competitive product. The claims ratio on the medical plans came in at roughly 109.9%. Which obviously reflects incurred claims compared to paid premiums. So what's happening with this now, we get a level fund, we make a level funded payment to Blue Cross Blue Shield based on an estimate. You know, we go through an estimate because we're self-insured. We talk it through with Blue Cross Blue Shield. They recommend a number. Our NFP group, should have done this before. Our NFP group then works with their number. NFP has been really good at getting us a tighter number than Blue Cross Blue Shield because they really go to the very last possible day that they can in order to get us closer to a real actual. That's been beneficial for us, but we are, at the point that it's not enough to look at these 10% increases and keep on rolling here. We need a little more help with that. So we are looking at every factor that we can to possibly lower that. And the estimate he's given us on the 10.75% is based on an estimate of 1.5% increase in administrative costs, which is very low, a 20% increase in reinsurance, and medical inflation of 8%. So any claims that, are lingering, they last longer, inflation gets them, you get the reinsurance market, and that's how we're coming out with, a more expensive end game with that. Our dental is looking like it'll increase about 3.1%. NFP predicts the total funds needed by Wilmington to pay, administrative costs, reinsurance costs, and incurred but not reported claims. That's how they come around to telling us what we should be putting in our trust. So when that level monthly payment is made, if we have excessive claims beyond what we've estimated for the year and leveled out for the 12 months, then we get quarterly statements right now, and quarterly bills. When I first came here, I said, these aren't always, credits, and someone in my office said, oh, no, they're always credits. And I'm like, no, they aren't. And they found out, no, they're not. Because this year, we're getting really nailed with those. And I think they're changing to not make them quarterly. They're going to make them monthly now, so that might be better for us. So in the end, the other piece of this is there's the employee trust, which, that the employee trust covers the 25% from employees. This year, we did, because of the pandemic and the non-utilization of the health plan for a couple years, to the level it had been being utilized, we had a buildup of funding in the employee trust. We took the advice of NFP and had an employee holiday, which we estimated was going to be 16 weeks when we started out this year based on the funding we had, to bring it to an acceptable level that NFP recommended according to laws and, suggestions for trusts. And what happened in the end was our experience changed so much in the year, having so many claims, that we cut that in half and ended up with an 8-week premium for the schools and the town on that. So we did kind of straighten out our trust balances in that way, and that was, to put them in a healthy light. And then I always like to, I don't want to keep, I know I'm going on and on with a lot of things here, but I do want to just show you, just in terms of, you usually ask me a little bit about our employees and what we're looking like for the coming year. And so I just want to give you that little right up here and say, in 2023, 11 employees retired. 21 new hires were completed. In 2022, there had been 47 new hires. And in 2021, there had been 21 new hires. So you can see these numbers. We had a huge year here. It was just massive last year. We told you that when we were here last year, how many people we had hired, and even just these internal hires too. The change of one person retiring and someone else taking their job, and the next person moving up, and the next person moving up, is all the same activity for our office. It's still posting it, it's still interviewing, it's still going through all of that. So this was a big, big year. This one's kind of mellowed out and gone back to numbers like we've seen before. So that is, I just wanted to share those with you. And you usually ask me for a projection of age group to kind of just tell you how many over 65 we have is 6. At 64, we have 6. We have 1 at 63, and 9 employees at 62 this year, and 6 at 61, and 11 at 60. And that should kind of give you a little viewpoint that I think, retirements will be slowing down, I hope, a little bit. And that doesn't include 6 employees that we've had put in their retirement for this year. And the very last thing I'd like to share with you is that, just so you know, we're staying on the ball. We do have building projects, and builder's risk insurance is a factor with building projects, because we really want to make sure that when that construction is going on, they're properly insured, and that doesn't, the risk with builder's risk insurance is that if you go through the contractor, you never want that gap to happen where the contractor finishes the project, the town needs to pick up the insurance, We're watching that closely. We usually recommend that we do the builder's risk insurance internally with our own insurer. We priced that out with the framing of this building. It was extremely expensive. And the good news is we have a very credible GC, and that GC was able to get that builder's risk down by, I think, a lot of money, like maybe even half. So Maya was a great team member in this way. They took that contract from us and looked at it, the proposal, and they told us we had adequate coverage with that, and they said, good for you, you got that. We're embarrassed we couldn't get that number for you. And and told us to go with that. So we'll be very mindful about watching that there's no gap in coverage when that, that ends, you know, the construction ends and we pick up that building as in use. So, sorry. A lot.
Question for you.
Sure.
Go
You
ahead.
go ahead.
Okay, on the health insurance.
Yeah.
Does the carrier come in and do seminars for health and welfare?
You know, they can, and we offered some things last year, and we actually offered some new programs last year. We had the IAC come in. You know, the IAC is still working. You know that there are reps from all of the, you know, school and the different departments coming in and making the decisions to move forward or recommendations to the town manager to keep on going. And we had them come in to do some describing of new products. We didn't get a huge turnout of people showing up, but they're available to do that and willing to do that. I actually think we're going to put out a little education program this year because one of the main ways we could save money on our health kit program is to get people moving from the PPO to the HMO. And you know, there are those of us who've had that experience where your child goes out of state and you somehow feel you need the PPO. And I'll admittedly say, embarrassingly, I got duped. I switched to the PPO thinking I needed it to cover her, and in the end, it didn't help me at all. So you end up paying a lot more money doing that. And so we're going to try to really get people educated on that and try to, you know, put that out in front of them because certainly it's a big difference for
Does
us.
the workman's comp company come in for prevention of accidents?
Oh, yeah, that training, there's lots of Maya trainings offered all the time. And we have a safety committee, and I have to tell you, when I first came to this town, they said to me, you're gonna love the fact of their safety committee is so well known by us. They really meet with us, they do all the things that we ask. We get some grant funding occasionally, like that camera. They really do, as a client, they prioritize us, and so that's been really good. And I think that's the good work of the building department. Brian, Jamie, Joe, all of them are on that safety committee, and they're very consistent about coming.
I have a question. Could you please explain public liability officials and how, I'm looking at back in 2022, it was 0. And then it went from 9,000 to this year's budget, 156,000. Can you just tell me what's in there and why?
That's like school board liability, you know, it's the, I guess, the executive level protection for your school board and other positions
Select
in
board.
town.
But why the big increase?
Well, as I said, they had issues with claims that develop over the years. They might have a claim from the past that then develops over the years, and that's what's happening.
Okay, so we had 0 expenses in 2022.
0 expenses in 2022, and you're getting...
Expenditures,
Page
yep.
68.
Oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Oh,
So you can see, looking at this, it kind of stands out as,
yeah,
What
you know,
happened?
I can research that if you, I came in 22 in the early part of the year, and I probably even came on the heels of your meeting, so I can look back at that.
Okay.
I'm not ducking it at all, but that isn't my number, 23 and 24. So I can explain those, but I'm not sure about the 0 on the public
yeah,
liabilities.
and I'd just be interested in why even it went from 9,000 in '23 to 136,000 in '24.
Yeah,
So.
okay.
And I'd also be interested in knowing if there are claims against officials on any of these boards, you know.
Okay.
Without divulging anything that cannot be divulged.
No,
But if you could get that, that'd be great.
they had a loss ratio of 117 is what they're giving me, so I would assume there's claims, but,
Okay.
yeah. Okay. And of course, I wouldn't be able to tell you if there were, you
Oh,
know,
yeah, no, absolutely.
Just to
I
clear
don't
that
want
up,
any
I'm
of-
not gonna come
yeah.
back and,
No, yeah.
yeah, no, I understand. I said it wrong when I
Red?
said sure.
So I guess the caller, the opposite of that question, do you remember, I can't, and I was part of these meetings and I can't remember the answer, but do you remember why we budgeted a reduction in property and general liability in FY '24 over FY '23?
So this is the area where this gets a little funny, because you'll see at the top, some are named expenditures and some are named transfer and appropriations. right? At the top. This is a shakeout of how the money's spent, like, over time. So I always get, it looks like we're increasing a lot this year, for example. I get a number early in the year. I don't really know what that year is. Next year, it falls under the transfer and appropriation, where we still may be spending down that money, or if there still may be costs incurred, under that, amount. So I think it really, until it gets to expenditures, it's not the number, I guess. Brian, would you like to help me with that?
No, we're looking at two different things. For '24, it was the voted budget. For '23, it was the actual incurred expenditures.
I understand that, but we typically, well, I guess we wouldn't know what the actual expenditures
Until
of
next
FY
year.
'23 were until after we set the FY '24 budget.
Well, the other thing
Right.
too is, in fiscal year '25, we'll have the senior center coming on board too. They'll be completed, so they'll be up there.
I was just looking at this, it's possible that back in FY '22, public liability, I mean, the official, like, school board liability and all that stuff was probably part of the property and general liability
Yeah,
coverage, and they've broken up.
It was
It's
restructured
po-
a few
it's po-
times, the way the presentation was from predecessor. I know we changed the layout on it a couple different times. I think they consolidated it basically to some.
And
we
just,
tried to make some more specific.
thank you.
So when we do that, that's great, like if, whenever you need to make changes to make it easier and smoother for reporting. But if we could just have a note that
Yeah.
would like follow that
Sure.
every year, so that we don't have to keep asking the same questions.
yeah, no, I could put that in my
And
notes.
I would like to flag this as a, I'd like that confirmed,
Mhm.
that's the cause.
Yeah,
To me, it was just a guess. Just, the other comment I wanted to make is, this is overall, this is both employees, property and general liability, workers' comp, and public liability officials are school and town
Yes,
coverage, correct?
yes,
So, as you mentioned, is school board liability, select board liability,
Yep.
that type of thing.
yep.
Thank you.
Yes.
Any other questions for Sue? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Brian?
Thank you. Moving on to 69, the next page, statutory charges. Current year overlay, we continually plug that with the same figure that we have, and that seems to be working for now. Retirement contributions is the figure that we're given from Middlesex Retirement. And I know in a previous meeting, we also did discuss some of the impacts on the prepayments that we've been making, and hopefully we see that come to fruition a little bit in the next valuation we get for '26 and beyond for the values. The next bunch of charges from offset down to special ed. As you remember, on the revenue side, we were talking about how we're not going to increase the revenues. We want to continually budget those conservatively based on historical trends as well as what, just using as information what the governor's budget has. On the expense sides, we actually adjusted these to reflect what the governor at least put in her budget. So we have some sort of basis, at least jumping off point for it. Again, it's an early time to work on the budget, but offset down through special ed is based on verbatim from what we had in the governor's budget. The North Shore Tech figure, the expenditures have been lower the last couple of years. That's enrollment-based. We had been using 2.5% as a jumping off point for the budget year to year. So that's where the figure is. Again, we don't know what the enrollment's gonna be come FY '25 yet, but we think that might be the conservative side of budgeting it at this point. Because there is obviously new ins and new outs as well as changes of plans and coverage for those students. So there's,
Charter schools took a huge jump. Is that, we have more kids in charter schools now?
I don't have the details on that. I don't know, but that comes, that's pretty formulaic.
Okay.
And I think that
Cherry sheet.
Yeah.
it does, but
Yeah.
yeah, how they come to it, I believe it's formulaic based on The ones going in and out, I think some sort of degree of
Okay.
learning.
It's based on the October 1st
Yeah.
enrollment.
Through Desi, right?
Yep.
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 And then the last page I'll touch on is 70 warrant articles. We did have a slight increase to the article for Memorial and Veterans Day. From 8,000, there was an ask of another 5,000. For that, we historically spend immediately up to and beyond, and that gets absorbed into local departments who are paying for,
Flowers
It-
for the graves.
yeah,
That's the big
yep.
flowers we decorate the graves with.
Lisa Veterans Quarter, that's been 1,500 as long as I know. 4th of July, again, that's set at 50,000. And then the decision was made to continue budgeting the transfer to the OPEB trust and to the capital stabilization as 1 million as it had been in the manager's budget historically, and then continue the prepayment of retirement at 1.5 million, which I know last year, those were the figures in the manager's budget. They are subsequently changed through discussion and trying to absorb some costs for historical building projects, so that got reshuffled a bit. But my understanding was the motivation was just to keep these as level and not change them as they had been historically presented in the manager's budget. So that's what we agreed to do.
What's our balance at OPEB?
OPEB is about, it's actually about 12 million in the trust fund.
Yeah, okay.
The valuation is roughly about 100 million, and that ebbs and flows by 5-10 million plus or minus, depending on the timing. And as Susan had touched on a bit too, inflationary health costs is going to be a main theme for a long time, I feel.
Okay, thank you. Lou,
Yes?
any comments, or?
No, Brian did an amazing job. He's been my right-hand man. Every time I've gone down to his office, he's sitting in his chair, I ask him a question, he can tell you what page it's on and help me work our way through this, so.
Okay.
If you have any questions of me?
Anybody on the committee have any questions for Brian? Seeing none? Thank you, sir.
Thank you. I did add, the next item, I know you'll get to it, but I had requested that to get added. I know we talked about it in November. We wanted to table it until we had some more finite figures, so.
Did you want me to go over to capital?
Yes, please, but,
All right.
okay, go ahead.
That's what I figured you would go. Again, every department has done an amazing job putting off what they could, and basically, what you're gonna see here is things that really couldn't be put off. The first one is the range maintenance. As you know, the range has been in operation since 2016, and they have a company that come in and do all the cleaning to get all the lead out of it. It's all done with EPA regulations, and that's 40,000. The TASER replacement program is 20,500. There are,
What does that consist of?
the tasers that they got originally, I guess there was some kind of a warranty with them or something, and the police chief can obviously explain this better, but they basically what it says, they have to replace these tasers, and a lot of it wasn't covered in the different.
Why are we replacing them? Are they not working?
Oh, no, that I don't know. They go from phase 1 to phase 2, the brand name, and I am, honestly, that's something gonna have to ask the police chief on that. Okay? Cruisers, we are asking for no cruisers this year, rifles. The fire feasibility substation, like Brian said, that's kind of held there, and we are actively looking for land in North Wilmington to put a fire substation up there. The ambulance, 475,000 is discussed. The DPW Vector truck, like, again, Brian had mentioned the 330 from free cash and 330 from water. A DPW heavy-duty front-end loader of 205,000. The DPW culvert rehab and lining. The Ballavale, 135,000. I should probably go through my big, the big
Yeah.
ones you gave me. Are they in order? Just, I'm sorry, the culvert lining, 135. The DPW Engineering Services, general permits, 75,000. The phased cemetery development, that was the new section that they're working on, is 60,000. The mini wing mower, which Jamie had come in front of you, this board recently. The Lowell Street Fields Recreation Area Improvements, 50,000. The infield pro groomer, 38,000. A lot of those have to do with the new fields on Lowell Street, that we have the new lease with.
Yeah.
Old Textron.
When did that start, Lou? January 1st?
January 1st, yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah. And they haven't been able to get out there and cut the grass yet.
Use a
We're
plow.
down to the schools, the high school projectors, 130,000. High school switch replacement, 114,000. High school wireless upgrade, 90,000. The minivan is 75,000. Some Chromebooks for 75,000. And public buildings, again, George and his crew did an amazing job. They're just looking for 2 vehicles. One was 89,000, one was 33,000. And the fiber connection for IT is 50,000. And elderly services is looking for a replacement of their van, high miles, and it has a little wear to it. So the total capital is $2,827,500.
How much is from free cash?
1.6 million?
1.61.
1.6?
Yep.
Okay. That's good.
Again, I just want to give all the department heads kudos for working hard and
Yeah.
what they could do to level fund and capital.
Is the elderly services van handicap accessible?
Oh, yes, handicap wheelchair,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
So, Lou, some of the expenses that we just talked about for the land that we're going to be leasing, didn't we have money come in that we were putting towards that?
Money putting towards that.
Mhm. Did we have, we had money that was being allocated for that?
I don't think so.
Well,
We're gonna be out,
yeah, yeah,
okay.
yeah,
There was a grant?
Yeah, I don't have that off the
That-
top of my
yeah.
head, but yeah.
yeah, okay. We'll talk to Jamie when he comes in.
Yeah, that's right.
Do you know which one we're replacing for the elderly services? In the 2016 or the 2017?
They only have one.
Oh, one's in black.
Yeah.
Oh, it says transit van. Oh, okay, yeah.
Anything else, Lou?
I don't think so, unless you want me to go over anything else.
No. no,
Just
no.
getting warmed up, Lou.
Yeah.
I know you can, Lou.
You've been talking all night. Anything else for Lou from the committee?
Great job, Lou. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Yeah,
Thank you both.
Brian.
For the work you did.
Susan.
Not easy to pull all this together, thank you.
Next is, we have a transfer.
We do, and this is a nice segue from the Lowell Street property we just mentioned. As of January 1, is the town entered a lease agreement for the land. Back in November, we had briefly discussed the town has contractual obligations to basically pay back some of the taxes that are owed, basically just on the land exclusively leased to it.
Yeah.
We had a rough figure for about 10,000 for what we thought would be the whole fiscal year. Before, as it's January 1, we prorated to just cover the third quarter and fourth quarter. With that being told, we had the tax rate settled after that meeting. We had a firm figure for the tax rate, and the obligation for FY '24 would be $4,379.42 for the third and fourth quarter. So we're just asking for a transfer. This has been something that Jeff had, I know, put on everyone's radar for quite a while to ask the Finance Committee for. Once we got a firm figure, and we have that, it actually includes $100 of a one-time rental fee. Otherwise, the tax figure would have been $4,279.42. So I just want to come to the Finance Committee and request the transfer of those funds for that, so we could go ahead and begin to pay that
And you said that was third quarter?
Third quarter and fourth quarter.
Oh, third and fourth?
Yep, it's a half year on it,
Okay.
prorated.
Hot off the press.
Yeah.
So why don't they just get an abatement or, why don't we just, why do we need a transfer? Why don't we just write them? a check?
We're paying them back. We can't, I guess there's state law as far as we can't just abate it for a certain reason, the fact that the town entered a lease agreement. And we can't not bill it because it's not town-owned property, it's a lease.
Oh, I understand.
We thought it'd be a lot easier too, I think, before
Well, makes
everything.
sense to me.
Yeah.
It's not an issue, I'm just asking.
No, I know. I think that
So what account is this gonna be transferred into?
we would transfer it into the manager's office as professional and technical and pay it as a professional agreement.
Oh, okay. Is there,
For 4,000, what was the,
4,379.42.
4,379?
is there a second?
Second,
Discussion. Seeing none, all in favor?
aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
Thank you.
The Town Hall School Administration Building Progress Report. The only thing I can tell you is, yes, I'm on that committee, and we're having a meeting tomorrow night. But 5 o'clock on Zoom, and the bids came in higher than what we appropriated, and the committee went and actually made some cuts to bring it down to the appropriated amount, which was decent, so. Recesses, okay. Karen?
Do you
Wanna
want
come
to
up?
keep the memo? Do you care about the memo? Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, you can sit here.
How you doing? Do you want to give your budget?
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought
Yeah.
Brian had covered
Yeah,
it, so we were.
we already covered it.
Oh, okay, okay,
Yes, okay.
okay.
Maybe you could just ask us
Sure.
questions.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Karen, what are the new projects in town? How are they,
I'm sorry, what's that?
the new projects in town?
Sure, so, it probably comes to the new growth question.
Mhm.
Brian and I had discussed that, and the, I'm comfortable with 1.8. So in looking at the, history of new growth, our residential new growth, this last year for the 3.5 million was pretty much, an anomaly, like Brian had alluded to. In our personal property class alone, there was 1.9 million of the value, and it was really one taxpayer, who does robotics, and they had like another $50 million in value from inventory of robots that had moved into town. That will probably be moving out as well, so it was kind of a one-shot deal. So that was a big unexpected amount of growth. Then we also had the industrial class was 1.1 million of that, and the residential class was only $470,000. So since 2019, our residential class has actually had a smaller amount of growth than our commercial industrial when you look at the whole. So we've had a history 3.5, 2.5, 2.3, 1.3, but the residential amount, because we've had so much new commercial, industrial, and personal property, the personal property has really carried us. Boston Gas has had a lot of new growth. The year before, we had another personal property account that had a substantial amount of new growth as far as new inventory, equipment, et cetera, all the taxable personal property. So personal property has really carried us through these higher numbers of new growth, but like Brian said, it's very unpredictable. The Boston Gas, the utility values that come from companies and the Department of Revenue, some of those don't come to us until May or June. March 1st is when businesses have to report to us, so trying to project that, we could never know some of the larger numbers. As far as new construction on the real estate side, we do have Lowell Street, the 175 Lowell Street, the old Textron property. So we were just asked this week to set up a time to go out and do an inspection. I've heard that that's for sale, or the sale is about to take place, so now they're looking for their occupancy. And so we're going out this week to do inspections on that. I'd be very interested to see the sale price when that happens, and who's the new tenant. It's always the mystery. We do have 2 more of those types of buildings up on Upton Drive. They're not 100% complete, so that will be added new growth this year. 800 Salem Street is another one of those large warehouses.
Is there supposed to be 2 there?
Up on Upton Drive?
No, on Salem.
Salem Street, I'm not sure. I know there's one large one.
I heard there was going to be a second one there.
Is there?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that yet. I'm not
Okay.
sure.
Huge.
And then we've got 203 Lowell Street with the apartment building.
Yep.
And just to remember that when it's an apartment, that it does go into the commercial class. So when we do the tax classification and shifting of the tax rate, how much value goes into residential versus the commercial, industrial, personal class. This year, there was more in the percentages changed from residential to commercial, so that there was less residential value than the previous year. So we shifted more to the commercial, industrial class. But this year, we will have the 203, at least a portion. I don't know what percent complete they will be as of June 30th. But we do have the apartment building there. And across the street, the 168 Lowell Street, all the condos. Last year, as of June 30th, not all of those buildings were there, and they were not all 100% complete. Whereas this year, phase 2 and now phase 3 will be, I'm assuming phase 3, the last one's right out on Lowell Street, will probably be close to finished as of June 30th. I mean, they're going up relatively quickly.
Farther down Lowell Street, on the left-hand side, like behind Burger King, or diagonally behind Burger King, is that building completed?
Wrap
Solutions.
Wrap Solutions.
Actually, that's a very interesting business, and it was complete. So that will be added as well. And there's a barber shop in there, so you can. And it's a 1950s setting.
Oh, really?
They're very enthusiastic, and it's a very modern, retro
I
type.
feel right
feel.
at home there.
Yeah, you should check it out. At least go get a haircut, and then maybe you get a peek at the rest of it. It's kind of neat. It's misleading as to what you think it is. I'm like, I thought it was gonna be a restaurant with wraps or sandwiches or something. But the gentleman who's the owner, that's like in remembrance of his mom. And so they did a 1950s-ish theme. And yeah, so they do a lot of retro colors and stuff inside. It's really fun. They do wraps on vehicles a lot, some buildings. Pretty much, actually, the wallpaper in the bathrooms isn't really wallpaper, it's the wraps, and it looks like brick and stuff, so they're pretty cool. You could,
Neat.
but yes, that is another one
Yeah.
on Lowell Street.
Oh.
You had asked also about the TIF agreement.
Yes,
with-
yeah.
with Analog, and yes, it did finish this
Okay.
year. We met our $5 million, and a part of the projected new growth, Brian and I, we did talk about how much we thought the new growth would be now that we're gonna go at market value versus the TIF value. I've been reaching out to them, but there's been some acquisitions of other companies there, so there's a little transition as to who's in charge of what. So I recently received some contacts to be able to have the conversation, that I don't wanna be in a position now that we go to market value and then we have a large abatement or, appellate tax board cases or something, so I wanted to have the conversation about value with them. So we're hopefully gonna get to the right person to start that.
The new building on Ballardvale, is that completed as well?
Which,
Heading towards Andover. Yeah, past,
on the right-hand side, the warehouse.
Yes,
on
yeah.
Research Drive.
yeah,
At number 10 Research Drive. Not been called to do a final inspection there yet.
okay,
on that path. But
Okay.
that will be a new one.
yeah.
And there's one at the end of Andover Street, on the corner, there's a new building going up there too. But you can see the elevator shafts were up, and they're, that's on underway.
Now, how many units is that gonna be
Which one?
on Andover?
I don't think that's gonna be units, that's a commercial property.
Isn't that Cabot and Cabot doing that? Storage?
Oh, I'm not sure what that's gonna be yet.
Okay.
You can ask Al, he would, or Al or Val.
Okay, you can ask him then.
I was gonna say, as far as my budget goes, there's really, prices have gone up, the per hour, per parcel type prices nothing's really changed too much as far as miscellaneous contractual services. That's a lot of our data collection, processes for residential, personal property. It is a revaluation year for us in fiscal year '26. But a lot of that work will start in March and April of '25. So a portion of that is in this year's budget, and
Mhm.
then you see a portion in next year's.
Okay.
So the law changed, and we are on a 5-year cycle. Mass law is 5-year revaluation, although every year we have to be at 100% of market value. So we still have to go through the same process, it's just in a revaluation year. They require more documentation, the Department of Revenue comes in, physically goes out and does data quality studies on our data, there's a lot more detail involved. So we had this past year, this fiscal year, we started our data conversion. We went from an older version of our software to a newer version. We're still kind of vetting that process. We've been short-staffed in our office since May. So we're down a person, which makes it a little bit challenging. Our vendor, we're gonna be trying to move to the cloud with our data. So Vision software is the same thing that Lowell had, and when they had their cyber issues, the assessor's office was on the cloud with Vision, so they were protected and they didn't have any issues. So we looked at that kind of twofold. We had, kind of takes a piece of the responsibility off of the towns. Our IT department gets to go to Vision for hosting. Nothing is totally secure on the web. I mean, any companies, as we all know, can be still hacked, or at least it kind of shifts responsibility. We received agreement with them. Town council's reviewing that, and they have some changes, so we were hoping to do that soon, because in the fall, when we were trying to wrap up all of our values, we had a little bit of an issue with Vision being able to access to our information, our data after hours, because they have so many clients to fit through a very small window. They just need to be able to work nights, weekends, or whenever we can. So by putting it on the cloud, then they can work whenever, and being a revaluation year, it would be helpful for them and their staff. Everybody does remote after COVID, so they don't necessarily come into our office to do the work like they had in the past, so that would make it easier. But we're in the process of going through that. That's why the increase under the appraisals and inventories. The appellate tax board stayed the same. We don't have much in the way of cases, but you never know. I do have a couple of pending things that I'm waiting for withdrawals, but I'm not sure they're gonna agree with me. And our training, the cost of everything goes up, and classes for us are typically over $600 now, just for, a week-long class to take certifications or to train new staff coming in, so that's kind of stayed the same. So other than that, I'm not sure if there's any.
The software you showed us last year, you demonstrated.
I love near maps. It's expensive, but I have to tell you,
It's worth it?
It is so worth it. So 175 Wall Street, I've not been on the site physically yet because there was so much construction. But near maps you can measure, so it's like that building's 950 feet long, from an aerial photo. The other day, we were looking at a parcel, and it's like, what's going on in back? Was there anything there June 30th? Because they've been clearing the land, but it's like up and over, and you can't see. Jumped on near maps, and it's like, oh, and you can just slide it over. So we've also, many other departments have been using it. Once they get used to it, it's like, log in, I can, start using this, it's amazing. So, and the fire department actually has their own software, but it's been helpful. Deputy Chief Posey and I work on that often too, to have them use it for different things in solar. You can see all the solar panels on the rooftops, and it's pretty amazing.
It's great. It's great. Anyone have any questions for Karen on the board? Thank you.
Coming in.
Minutes.
We're gonna put that off until the next
Public comments
meeting.
first.
Sure.
Any public comments?
You know what I'm saying?
Good evening.
I have a few comments and a few questions. Before I start, I just wanted to say that I know that you're on the Town Hall School Administration Building Committee, and I'm disappointed that your committee has gone to Zoom meetings, and I don't think that's fair for the community.
It's actually, it's only one meeting for tomorrow night, and there's a couple things we have to discuss with the contractor.
Yeah,
It's going to be very short.
Well, I have a problem with that because I think that people in Wilmington should be able to come down and make public comments and identify problems with the project. And just for the benefit of the board members.
I'll note that to the chairman.
Okay, just since you're gonna note that, just for the benefit of the other members here, I just wanted to point out, in case you're not aware of this, that the Swain School was on that site, and half the foundation was sunk below the current grade, and they actually got water in their basement. And when it comes to drainage infiltration
Sir,
system.
you're going off topic, okay? Public comment is going to be on the agenda and basically the budget.
Yeah, there's so many financial matters on here, such as deficiency in water mains that we talked about, transfer of the water main funds to building projects. So I kind of have a problem with that when now there's a deficiency in the water contract. So I just wanted to show the other members, when it comes to infiltrators and septic systems, you actually have to
Okay,
be
you're
4
off,
feet above it.
you're off topic.
Okay, so just to let you know, I'm 6 feet tall. The grade there is gonna come up that much.
You're off topic.
That's fine. Okay, so, let me get back on
Building's on a
topic, with regard to the, retirement contributions. Looks like there's like close to $9.5 million being contributed to the retirement. And so my questions is this: has the Middlesex County Retirement Board submitted investment information to this board to show whether or not the retirement money managers are returning a healthy return on retirement investments that is over and above inflation, so that we can properly evaluate if they are playing casino, knowing that the town will bail them out? Is there anything that you could show us on a screen or something like that that show what the return is on their money, seeing as though there's a $9.5 million line item for retirement contributions?
Brian, do we get a,
They report annually to PERAC, I believe. I believe PERAC would have all that.
And would you be able to share with us what the rate of return is, if it's a positive return, if it's flat, if it's negative, how that weighs in as far as inflation?
I don't have any of that information. The county retirement board would.
Oh, okay, so this is part of our budget. Would you be willing to get that information so that you could share with the public for the next meeting?
actually, no,
No?
no.
Okay.
No.
Well, could you try to help us out with what this $9.5 million is for? Is that an assessment? Is that based on a percentage of the salaries? Can you tell us a little bit about that?
It's an assessed figure they give. They give you 2 years at a time, basically.
Okay, and what type of checks and balances to see if that assessment's proper, or if it's, you know, if we're bailing them out for bad investments?
Yeah, no, they have a board they report to, and they're overseen by PERAC.
Okay. So the other questions that I have are pertaining to insurance. I was wondering if the assistant town manager would be kind enough to share with us, maybe put it in layman's terms so that people watching at home can have a better understanding what you mean when you talk about loss ratios, such as a 250% loss ratio for the oil spill, 117% loss ratio for professional claims, and just kind of give us an interpretation in layman's terms what that actually means.
Sue,
Yeah.
do you want to come up here? And there's a microphone.
So, for example, I'll use the example of the claims ratio on medical plans. It came in at 109.9. That reflects incurred claims compared to paid premiums. And this means that if the premiums collected, 109.9% are being used for claims, fixed charges, administrative costs, and reinsurance premiums. This type of high claims activity, so what you're saying is when you put your money aside to pay these claims, and you're going to 109%, you're not putting enough money aside to pay your claims. And so that is not beneficial to the insurance company because
You're basically
obviously.
paying $1.09 for every dollar collected.
Exactly, and you would not make any money. So the ratio of, it's basically the ratio of incurred claims to paid premiums. And they like to see that, as we said before, at a 40%. I mean, obviously, they make money at 40%, but at 80%, they're still treating us pretty good. Is when we get over the 100% that, we start seeing bills to make up that difference. Is that explain?
That helps. I've done a little research, and I've noticed that out of the 351 cities and towns in Massachusetts, not every town and city is insured with Maya. And so, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's my understanding that the town is not statutorily required to put the employee health benefits out for bid. Is that correct?
We're not required to put them out to bid.
Okay, so
we're-
earlier in your
we-
presentation,
We
you
bid
meant.
them when we feel that there's a market reason to bid the employee health program. Right now, we're not liking our rates, so we could go out and shop that program if we wanted. There's risk to shopping that program always because they put little sweeteners in to keep you staying with them and say, we'll hold this rate unless you go out and shop, and then we may not. So
But that
there-
has nothing to do with Maya, right?
that has nothing to do with Maya, but he's mixing
Maya-
health and
But the
Maya.
other thing too is, if you go out to shop, no matter what policy it is, they do look at your loss ratios.
Yeah, and what you were asking earlier, and I was wanting to give you an answer, is that claims are always going to affect your premiums. I mean, that's the way it is. Your claims experience is going to affect your premiums, just like if you crash your car, your insurance is going to go up. So that happens, and some of these claims were faultless in them. Many of them were faultless in them.
Outwood was a
even
good example.
accidents, etc. And that's the way it goes. We'd love to protect against everything we can, and I think we do a fantastic job of doing that through the safety committee. But there are things we can't protect against.
I'm a little bit confused when the gentleman said that it has nothing to do with Maya.
Maya is our
If-
property and
if-
casualty
yes.
carrier, and professional liability, and workers' compensation, auto liabilities, and
Who provides the employee health benefits?
Blue Cross Blue Shield. We are a self-insured plan,
Okay.
and the town covers 75% of that. The employee covers 25%, and that's through a trust that's set up. We're unusual that way. We're a self-insured plan, and that you don't see a lot of that in towns because it creates some management internally, and it also creates having a consultant like an NFP
Plus the stop-loss policy.
to crunch the numbers and stop-loss policies. And if you get it right, it's great. It's a great value for the employees and the town. And if you get it wrong, you can find yourself underwater. And I think we've been there before I was here at one point. And right now, it seems like we're doing fine, and we're keeping a real close eye on, whatever projections we have. We're never perfect, but as we've said in the past about how we project that, Like an example is the premium holiday. Though we may have built up funds in that trust, then we turn around and give that back to the employees. And it's sort of like the not spending one time. You can say, why don't you use that trust to not take this 10% increase, for example? But you don't want to do that because it's one-time money. And so next year you'd be, if we tried to dull down the 10% and say, oh, we're only going to give you 5% because we have some money in this trust, and we'd be able to, the employees would be able to do it and the town would be able to do it, we would then find ourselves playing catch-up next year. So it's just kind of kicking the can down the road. So that's why we right the ship with doing the trust premium holiday, and then we come back at it. And if we have to, I hope we don't, but if we have to raise rates, we raise them on the projections that NFP gives us.
Okay, so do you have some hard numbers as to the amount of dollars the town had paid out based on the fact that they have to pay the first $175,000 in deductibles?
I can tell you, no, I don't have any hard numbers at the moment in front of me. I'm sorry. I have probably, we're not talking about hundreds of big claims. We're talking about under 10. We just have more than we've had in the past. And I think that's just largely because pandemic put off people doing some things, and now that's catching up with us. So no.
Just to get a clarification, when you said there's about 10 big claims, those are interpreted as big claims because they've gone over the deductible?
They've gone over the 175, so they're stop loss. We have stop loss insurance that after the 175 picks them up.
Could you put up the insurance screen again?
They're over the 175 amount.
Mr.
Oh.
Chair, would you mind if I head out?
No, go ahead. Thank you, sir. Enjoy your rest of your night.
Thanks.
Are you gonna be able to?
Definitely temporary.
That was uncalled for.
Could you put
That
up
was
this?
That was totally
uncalled
uncalled for.
If he's not temporary, maybe he should
Mick,
stay for the meeting and
move
answer
to
some
adjourn.
questions.
Is there a second? All in
Yeah.
favor?
Of course,
Aye.
of course. We wouldn't want to represent the
Approved.
town in a fair way.
I don't think we
If
can
you
do
have
that.
more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Yeah, I'm sure.
No, I am.
Yeah.
I've always been respectful to you, and I will continue to be.
I'm not talking about me, I'm talking about respect to the people watching at home.
Okay.
People would like to have some answers,
Brian?
I don't think we have a majority.
Yeah,
Yeah.
We did not have a
Okay, then
majority vote.
we're still in session then.
Is that your ruling? that-
Yeah.
The
that
motion
didn't have a
failed.
majority?
The motion failed.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Doherty, can you tell us how many firemen are actually paramedics on the department?
No, I can't.
Mr. Perry, would you be able to tell us how many firefighters? We're
No, the
we're
chief
looking to
would be-
buy an ambulance at $450,000. And-
475, but the chief would be the best one to answer that for
Yeah.
you. I don't have enough.
Well,
knowledge
it
of
seems to me that when you're buying a piece of equipment that's that expensive, you'd want people that could actually handle the emergencies that vehicle
You might
responds
want,
to.
you might want to ask the chief.
Again, why are you asking me to ask that? You're gonna be given a recommendation to the town meeting.
After we talk to the chief. You
Would
know,
you
in the
talk
pa-
to the
in-
chief?
in the
Wh-
pa-
I
in the
tell you
past-
what,
in
I
the
tell you what.
past, in the past, this committee has changed the budget, okay, for different things, okay? It could happen again. You know, we have to talk to the chief, find out what his budget is, and he has to defend it.
That's
that will
fine.
include the-
That's
that'll
fine.
include the
If you'd be
capital
willing
ex-
to talk to him about that and bring that point up,
That will
be
include the
great.
capital expenses.
okay. It's been reported that the town wants to hire an additional employee to take care of the field that they're leasing off of Textron, or whoever the entity is that owns that. We had just discussed the fact that employee health benefits have a deductible of $175,000. So
That's
this,
not what we said.
What's that?
That's not what we said. They don't have a deductible of 175,000.
we
The town
don't?
is responsible, or the trust is responsible for paying up to the first $175,000 of a claim, and then it's taken over by the stop loss insurance. The word deductible is not appropriate in that regard.
Okay, because both Mr. Perry and our assistant town manager referred to it as a deductible.
No, you didn't, sir.
So all right, let me rephrase it. So the town pays the first $175,000 of a claim, which is kind of similar to what somebody who has a deductible, but since you don't want to call it that, we won't call it that, okay? So when a new hire is taken on by the town is going to take on additional costs, such as insuring his family, up to $175,000 per claim, not cumulative. Hurt your finger, one claim. Hurt your toe, another claim, so on and so forth, okay? So it seems to me that it would be more prudent to subcontract this particular caretaking out to a private landscaping company, because we wouldn't be having to cover somebody that, as respectful as I can say about this, is a health train wreck. You know, somebody has a kid that's a drug addict, somebody has all kinds of problems.
What?
We are taking on those problems when you hire somebody, correct? Is there anybody that would disagree with that?
Hold on. So,
Yeah, I can answer, I can give you somewhat of an answer because I've had these conversations as the HR person. We always calculate the cost of an employee, and we require that our department heads do the analysis of the external versus hiring component. And I know, I just spoke to Jamie the other day, and I know he's done that, so I know when he comes in to give his budget to you, I'm sure if you asked him that question, he would be able to answer it. So,
Plus, the other
and I
thing too is-
think what we're missing is normally the department head would be here in their specific budget presentation. That might be the time to ask the questions of the fire department or the DPW. It's not that we don't want to answer it, it's just that they're more knowledgeable about their own departments
plus the other
specifically.
thing too is, not every employee has a family plan.
Yeah, and, I mean,
Insured through the town.
Yeah,
you know, I'm happy to say our health plan is healthy. I mean, it's a good, healthy working plan. Our IAC represents our employees, and it's working for us. And it's not easy to manage it, but it works for us. And so I don't have any shame in that. I understand what you're saying, and I want to tell you that's happening. I mean, we do an analysis of cost of employee versus external outsourcing. And sometimes there's value in internal employee for reasons that are beyond cost. And sometimes we have to take that into consideration. So, but we look at all those factors.
Just want to give you my opinion on the insurance. I do believe that if we're not required by statute to put it out for bid, that we should put it out for bid anyway. And I think because we're not required by statute to put it out for bid, we may have the right to reject any and all bids. You know, if a third world country insurance company comes in and wants to give us a bid that they're not stable, you don't take it, obviously.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think it would be prudent to actually put it out for bid and get some
I-
other eyes on the ball, so to speak.
We're talking about the same things that you are, so I don't think any of us are thinking we're gonna sit here and never bid our insurance. I mean, we don't think that, and I know this year it's come up because we've had increases, and, but at the same time, you have to look at the reasons you have those increases, and when you can tie them directly to claims, where are you going? You
Look,
know?
if you put it out to bid, they're going to look at your loss
Yeah,
history
you're gonna
too.
look at your loss ratios, and that doesn't make sense to be in a, you bid when you're doing really well, to get a really better deal. And also, you gotta be careful of the sweetheart deals that, you know, get you in the door and then you're left with something you don't really want later. We've had a really good experience with the companies we've been using, both our advisor and our Blue Cross Blue Shield, and, you know, it is what it is.
So, the other aspect of that is at a past meeting, I made the suggestion that you check out to see if this is a possibility by law, where if you identify some families that have like bad health records, and in a sense they're a health train wreck for the town and their insurance, and the employee happens to have a wife who has a job, who has insurance, if we were to offer them, say, $20,000 to go on their wife's policy, is that possible by law, and is that something that you've looked at?
I believe some towns, I don't know if they incentivize, but they may give you some money because you're not taking the benefits plan. It's an option you can think about.
But
You
it's
know,
not-
I'm.
It's not based on your
no,
loss.
No, it's not based on your loss at all, but it's more just an elected thing. If you say I have yeah, you don't do that at all. And the reality is, I'm the human in human resources. I'm never going to try to find somebody who needs the insurance to get them off of it. I'm sorry.
I think it's illegal, too.
No, companies do that all the time, like my company, my wife's company, if she's on mine, then her company will give her money that,
Right.
Right, but it's
But
not
it-
based on your loss.
it's not based on any
That's
health issue.
discrimination
Yeah.
based on.
Right.
on
Yeah.
Right,
the-
it's not
on
based
your
on
health.
any health history or whatnot.
Yeah.
I'm not looking to discriminate against anybody, break any laws or anything like that. But when I see our costs going up so much,
Yeah,
and to hear that you're not even willing to do that,
not even willing to do what?
Discriminate.
take a look at, say, the 10 big claims, okay? That's causing the insurance company to say, our ratio is only 109%.
Wouldn't that be a HIPAA
So therefore, they're
violation?
not incentivized to actually,
It's illegal to do what he suggested.
I could not pick someone
So-
by their claims
Discrimination.
experience.
I'm
Can we
glad you
just
brought that
say
legality
that?
up, sir,
It's illegal to do what he
because we wouldn't want the town to be liable for any type of discrimination or lawlessness. But if it was an offer,
If it was
you-
an offer like
I'm
he's
not talking
talking
about mandating it. This
Y-
gentleman made a suggestion that
Yeah,
sometimes his wife's company or
Yeah.
his company will incentivize somebody for going on the other plans. I'm
Yeah.
just talking about an incentive. You take those 10 families, okay, that are way over the $175,000.
I
So
understand, I
that's-
understand. Can
Okay,
I,
that's,
You have
those
to
10
offer it to
families,
all of-
those-
Can I-
It
those-
has to be everyone, it has to be
But-
everyone, it can't just be
Yeah.
a select set of people.
can I,
It's across the board, so we would have to offer that across the board.
can I
It's
speak
something we
to
should
that?
look into. Let's.
Can
any
I
other
speak to that
suggestions?
and I'll just
very,
put a cap
very,
on it?
very fair.
It's
very
something
fair.
we should look into.
Hold on, Sue.
Any other suggestions?
I just have one last comment to this. You want to be careful too that your incentivized program, even a good program like that, doesn't necessarily incentivize all your healthy people who have no complications and don't care who their doctors are. Because that might carry off the very people who are carrying your plan. So while I respect your suggestion, I may beg to differ a little because it may actually incentivize the very people that are making it work. So, but I do appreciate your commentary and
Okay, so, getting back to what I was saying about the, various costs on, the building projects. There were a significantly large pile of boulders that were dug up that I was told was an extra.
You're getting off the track of the budget.
I think the budget, right? I think it has to do with expenditures for, bonding,
That-
expenditures for.
Actually, if you're going back to the boulders, that would be the committee, the senior center committee, okay?
Okay.
Give them a,
I
Go-
just.
go to their-
would-
go to
would
their
the
meeting.
senior- Would the senior center committee have to come to this committee and say, look at, there's, 300 cubic yards
No,
of boulders that have to
no,
be hammered,
no, no.
crushed?
Go to the senior center committee on that one.
We're having a meeting, I'm on that committee, and I believe it's the first Wednesday in February, so next week.
But I guess maybe you can bring me up to speed.
Th-
The
That is a
finance
that's
committee-
a,
That
that's a
has
different
nothing to do
committee.
with my
I
role
That's a
understand.
different
tonight.
committee.
understand,
We're
but-
talking about the budget.
Here's the select, here's
Stay
the,
the-
here's the
stay on the-
selectman, here's the manager.
Stay on the
Here's the
budget.
finance committee.
No, you're
You guys are an
incorrect. on-
oversight
you're
committee.
You're incorrect, okay? But stay on the budget.
Mr. Doherty, with all due respect, you come to town meeting and you give recommendations to the people that are voting for the budget as to whether they should vote for an article or not.
Actually, the finance committee, it was up to the town, the residents of the town, to vote on the senior center, okay? The only thing, it came to us as a warrant, and we approved the warrant. It was our recommendation,
Okay.
okay? But any questions regarding the senior center, go to their committee.
Okay, I was just thinking about legalities, because if the town meeting votes on a dollar amount to be appropriated for a particular building project, and then they pull money out of another project, it doesn't seem like it's lawful.
Not for anything, you're off topic. We're talking about the fiscal year 2025 budget.
Okay. Okay, so part of the fiscal 2025 budget has to do with the DPW and the water department. So I was at a selectmen meeting and I shared with the board that the water department has contamination residuals that
Okay,
they pull
what
out
does
of their
that-
water.
What does that have to do with this budget?
Because the budget has to do with the water department. It has to do with
You're
various
you're getting
aspects.
into management as opposed to the
No,
budget?
this is strictly financial, because I was hoping Mr. Semagli would be here so I could ask him this question, but when he became the new temporary town manager, he entered into a contract with an environmental company, which I believe is North Shore Environmental.
You should.
And I
ta-
got
you-
some
you're-
paperwork
you're
showing that
off
there's
topic. You're off
I'm not
topic.
off topic.
Yes, you are.
I'm
You're-
not.
You're off topic.
This is a
It has-
financial matter.
It has nothing to
It's
do with the 20. Has nothing to do with the 2025 budget.
And I
okay?
don't believe
We're
it
on
went
the
out for
2025
competitive bid.
Mr. McDonald, you're out of order.
How is that out of order, sir?
You're out of order, okay?
I don't think I am.
Yes, you are, because we're talking about the fiscal year 2025 budget.
That's correct.
Okay? That is not in a fiscal year 2025 budget.
Let me explain it to you. Let me try to explain it to you as simply
Mr.
as I can.
McDonald, second time,
Part
you're out of
of-
order.
Listen, with all due respect,
Second time, you're out of
Okay.
order.
the water department
Third, you're done.
is
Ms. McDonald, you're done.
the
Third time,
budget.
you're out of order, you're
You have
done.
contaminants that
You're
have
done.
gone to a landfill.
You're
and
done.
now he's sending it to a private
you were-
farm.
you were
Because
done.
I followed the
Mr.
truck
McDonald,
there
you're
and
done.
watched him take it to a private farm instead of a landfill.
Have a conversation offline with the town manager.
I had a conversation with the selectman. I asked
Ms.
him where,
McDonald.
That's not
I
our
asked him where the
Mr. McDonald.
contamination was going.
Mr.
He
McDonald.
says, I don't
That's
know, I
not
think it's
our
going to the
purview.
South Shore,
We already
but when I
tried to-
follow
you
the
should've voted
truck,
with
it's
us.
going
We'd
up
be
by
outta here.
Worcester.
Ms. McDonald, you're out of order, and you're
It's not
done.
out of order.
You're out of order,
It's
and
an
you're done.
expenditure for the town. You're out of order because you don't want to answer the question.
No, not at all, sir.
Oh, yeah.
You're out of order.
It's called
Have a good
checks and
night.
balances
Have
and
a good-
being
have a good night.
respectful to the people in Wilmington
Have a
and
good night.
responsible.
Have a good night.
I would like to make a motion that we put a time limit on all public
I
comments
think we're gonna have
going
to.
forward.
We're gonna have to.
We still have to talk about the
That's
minutes.
a
Yeah, I know.
legit motion.
So-
No one wants to second that after this?
I'm sorry, what was your,
My motion is that we set a
I think
strict
that's a-
2-minute time limit for
I don't
public
think
comments.
2 minutes is enough, to be quite honest with
Okay.
you.
No,
What is the
we'll-
right amount?
What we'll do,
Between 3 and 5 minutes
Okay.
or something
Can I-
like
can
that.
I
It's-
get
it's-
the-
It's at the discretion of the chair.
yeah.
Is
And
what
and-
it is,
and
what it needs to be,
and at
and
the
it needs to
public
be set.
hearing, I've been doing 3 minutes.
But it has to be
Great.
consistent.
Yeah.
It has
I
to,
I make a
everybody-
motion, we limit public comments to
everybody
3
has
minutes
to-
for each person that attends all of our meetings going forward.
Well, he has to make that.
Yeah,
Oh, I
It's-
can't- oh,
it's-
okay.
It's
All right.
a-
I'll do that.
I'm making a strong suggestion, John, that you do that.
I don't think anybody would disagree with that.
I second that strong
I agree with you,
suggestion.
Chris. Next on the agenda is the minutes. We've got, let's see,
Move the minutes of March 23rd, 2023 as presented.
is there a second?
No. We're gonna look
Yeah.
at them again at our next meeting.
okay.
Because there's some changes that need to be made in
Okay.
them. So we're gonna have an opportunity to
Okay.
get them all
Okay, together?
exactly where they need to be.
Neither of them,
I'm sorry?
neither of the,
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll take a look at them at our next meeting.
Just wanna go, you just wanna go back and look at them.
And our next meeting is Thursday, so. Any other comments or questions, or entertain a motion to adjourn?
Make a motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
You wanna stay, Chris?